businessman. But 7 p.m. every day, he will come to the palace. That's where we live. He will go through the work of every child. Our firstborn is 85 years old. My last sibling is 50 years old. She turned 50 1.5 weeks ago. One of the things my father told us, at least those of us who are old enough to interact with him, he said, you will never marry, to those, we are very few boys. Of the 33, only 7 of us are boys. The rest 26 are females. The first 5 are females. He said, you will never marry a second wife. And he held our hands and made us to commit to him that we will never marry a second wife. He said, you will never do things because other people tell you to do it. You will do it because you are convinced it is the proper thing to do. And I remember I was in Form 1 in 1969 when he was telling me this. And I asked him, why this? He said, I listened to my mother. He said, if there's anything I regretted, I listened to my mother to marry a second wife, and I ended up marrying 6. And he said, after my first wife had 2 girls for me, my mother said, you are the son of a high chief. You must have a son. That made me to marry a second wife. The second wife had girl. Then the first wife had girl, making 3 girls. The second wife again had another girl, making 5. He said, my life got complicated at that point. You will never get your life complicated. The truth of the matter is, whether you have a boy or whether you have a girl, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Of the 26 of us who are alive now, the most successful are the girls. I have 3 sisters who are professors. 2 are professors of medicine. 1 is a professor of computer science. The one who is a professor of computer science is the first woman, black woman, to have a PhD in computer science, and the first to be a professor of computer science. Brethren, life is about value system. I planned to have just a child. But as I began to look at life, I modified my position. My first boy, who is 35 years old, when he was growing up, he grew up with his younger brother because he was about 2 years older than his younger brother. But the 2 of them are just 2 different people. My first boy is an introvert. My second boy is an extrovert. He's a typical Adedipe. And there was struggle in my house because the girl came much, much later. And just to address your point, my brother, every child is peculiar, whether it's a boy or whether it's a girl. My second son, from about the age of 3, 4, we already knew he's a musician. Because, you know, when you buy all these small pianos for children, the way he played that toy piano was different from the way his brother, senior brother, played it. So as fathers, the truth of the matter is, God says who a father is. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 23, he said, the husband is the head of the wife. The beginning of family is husband and wife. Get that clear, brethren. Whether you have children or you don't have children, the moment you go to a man's house to say you want to marry his daughter, and he gives the daughter to you, you have started what? A family. And the issue is, if the man is the head and is the father of the house, that man must display the features of who? Of the head. And when you look at the head has 5 critical elements of the body. Is the head that has the brain, yes or no?
Yes.
Is the head that has the eyes, yes or no?
Yes.
Is the head that has the mouth, yes or no?
Yes.
Is the head that has the ears, yes or no?
Yes.
Is the head that has the nose, yes or no? An extraordinary father must be truly head. Head is not to kick your wife around. Head is to think for the family. You must use your brain. To be the father is to see. You must have vision. Our brother Zach talked about vision for the children. We must have vision. An extraordinary father must be a visionary father. An extraordinary father must be a thinking father. An extraordinary father must be a communicating father. Must communicate and tell the children, tell the family, teach them and train them. An extraordinary father must be one who can hear from God and give direction to how the family goes. An extraordinary father must be able to be a nose, who can smell, who can perceive. Let's start with my life. I raised 2 sons who are close to one another, who are completely different. I had the first 2 when I was working for Ajib. And then I moved over to Shell. And Shell took me out of Nigeria to Netherlands. I remember in 1992, when they first came visiting me in the Netherlands, it was summertime. And they were playing football in our garden. And it was 9 p.m. And I said to Ebi, it's bedtime. The extrovert, to Ebi, said, Dad, you can't be serious. See the sun. Oh, it can't be bedtime. What do? As at that time, what was his age? In 1992, it was about 6+. So I had to play ball with them until we all got worn out. Are you hearing me? I had to do what? Play ball with them until we were all worn out. And when we retired to the house, this was about close to 12 midnight. The sun was still on, and I was going to work tomorrow. So we had to sit down. I said, okay, guys, what's the clock there? The extrovert said, oh, 5 minutes to midnight. I said, listen, this is Netherlands. I had to take them through what is summer, because that was their first time of spending summer outside of Nigeria. So I had to teach them. The following day, when I came back from work at about 6 o'clock, nobody was playing football. Why? Because they now understood that there's a need to look at the clock and not the sun. When we moved from Netherlands and we moved to the Middle East, Sultanate of Oman, Muscat, my second son, the extrovert, was the most popular of us all. Then, this was 1995, 1996 to 1999. He was in his teenage years. His brother was also in teenage years. He played soccer for his school. So when you open any dailies of Muscat in Oman, you'll see him there. And he put tension between him and his senior brother. And I didn't know that the tension had aggravated from what it was when they were in primary school in Nigeria. I went for their school open day. They were attending American British Academy, then in Moscow. And one of the teachers said, "You got to talk to your second son." I said, "Why?" He's an extrovert. I said, "Yes, I know that he's an extrovert." He said, "But he's putting pressure on his senior brother." Because I'm an engineer, I like proof. So I asked him for a proof. Because my own children also, because we've trained ourselves. Look, there's nothing any of my children will do. They will open up that they've done it. Because the value system we have, like Zach said, is that there is nothing wrong in doing wrong. But there's something wrong in denying doing wrong. So when we got back home, I quietly tabled it, and we all reasoned together. That's why, to be a father, you must be one who is ready to reason. And look, these are my young folks now. The way they reason is completely different from the way my 35-year-old reasoned 30 years ago. So for those of us who are bringing up kids now, look, we must be prepared for all questions. No, I'm serious. Because my own kids also, when they were young, 4, 5, 6, they asked me questions. There were many I didn't have answers for. And there's nothing wrong in telling your son or your daughter, "I don't have the answers now." Then you go research for the answers. Or you go talk to somebody else who has what? The answers. My girl came out of the run of play, as people will say. So when the boys had gone to secondary school, he was just a baby. So the things I know about my daughter up to when she started to feel like a woman, my wife didn't know. I was telling Teacher Neka yesterday night, she went to University of Oklahoma at the age of 15, 15. And people ask me, "Are you mad?" I said, "No, I'm not mad." He said, "How can you send a 15-year-old girl?" I said, "Guys, let's talk." I said, his two brothers went to LSU, Louisiana State University. when he was to do GCE London, he said, Dad, let's settle something. I said, what was it? Toeke. He said, I am not going to the university where my brothers went. I said, why? They're different from me. I am going to pick my own universities myself. And we discussed it. So, and everything about going to school and all of that, we discussed. Because that's key for fatherhood. Because the greatest father is who? He's God. And he says, come, let us reason together. He said, advance your case. And we must learn. Look, let me tell you one thing, brethren. At this age that they are in, I was telling Teacher Neka yesterday night, I went to see one of my young friends. He had a 4-year-old daughter. And we're in the sitting room. And the daughter came, wanted to talk to him, and he shouted at the girl. Don't you see that I'm talking with Big Daddy? So the girl sobbed and went away. So I looked at him in the eye. I said, Pius, I won't come to your house again. He said, sir, why? I said, if this is what you would do because I come to your house, I will not come again. He said, what have I done? I said, you don't even know what that little girl wants to tell you. You don't know the challenges that made her come to you. I said, you want to impress me? I am a made man. You can't impress me. That's the person you need to put something in our moral faculty. You better stand up now and go and meet her. I understand what the issues are. And when you bring her, put her on your laps, listen to her. I am of no consequence as your big uncle, as you call me, or daddy that you call me. I am of no consequence. That girl is of more consequence to you than I am. And many of us, we've put enmity between ourselves and our children by what I call our stupidity. So to cut the long story short, I told Teacher Neka yesterday, he went, brought the little girl, put the little girl on his laps. You know what the girl did immediately? The girl put her 2 hands around her father. Eventually, a few days after, they came to visit me, and the wife said, Daddy, thanks a lot for what you did in our house. I said, what is that? He said, that is the first time our daughter will put her hands around her father's neck. And since when you came, the relationship had changed. Zach spoke about relationship. There are some of the things that we grew up with. In my time when we were growing up, I see other families, how they shout at their children. My father never shouted at us. And he told us then that when you shout at your child, you diminish his or her ability to connect with people. And when we started in the oil industry, about 40 years ago, the Oyinbo boys, they were not more intelligent than we were. But because they grew up in an environment in which they can easily connect to people, they were able to connect and network, and they seemingly looked as if they were more intelligent than us. But they were not. And that brings to the question that our brother asked earlier on. The issue is, there is the age where you can use thou shalt not. There is the age where you say, this is why you should not do this. And there's also the age where you say, you do not do this, because of so and so consequence. And for every child, the transition is different. Look, my little girl grew up faster than my first son. The things that my girl knew at 6, 7, 8, 9, my first son didn't know it until he was about to finish secondary school. I'm serious. Because typically, he took after my wife, who is an introvert. I'm an extrovert. And extroverts are able to pick things because they can do what? They can easily connect with people. And we've got to be men, you know. If you look at the way I structured the head, I started with B, brain, isn't it? Eyes, mouth, ears, and nose. So, as fathers, we must be men. We must be able to use our brain to think, use our eyes to see, use our mouth to communicate, use our ears to hear, and use our nose to perceive. If there's anything that we need to understand, our relationship with our spouses determine our relationship with our children. A man who is not likely to talk to his wife is not likely to talk to his children. Even when he wants to talk to his children, they will think something is amiss. Look, there's no age that these children don't see. Even at when you carry them in the hand, they see you. Even when they're in the womb, they see. And that's why we've got to be very careful as men on how we relate with our spouses. Because if we are not good husbands, we are not likely to be good fathers. To cut the long story short, we must be men like Abraham. We must be men like Cornelius. Cornelius was more busy than all of us here. I'm talking of Cornelius in the Bible. The Bible said he was a centurion of the Italian band. So he also went through go slow and traffic of their time, but in a different dimension. I'm talking to those of us who live in Lagos. I started to live in Lagos about 8 years ago after I retired from Shell. No matter how busy we are, the time we're at home, please, let's spend it at home. The time we're at home, let's do what? Let's spend it where? At home. Because look, you might have gone to work for Access Bank or Lake Oil or Shell, and you've been holed up throughout the time. By the time you came, the kids are asleep, but the kids are at home on Saturday and on Sunday. Yes or no? Yes. There's no Lake Oil work. There's no Access Bank work to do. That Saturday, please, the things that you have not done in the week, try and do what? Make up for it. Let me tell you, did I born good things? I born good things. And I can give you examples where I born good. My second son, in their school, ABA, American British Academy in Muscat, they were having a musical show. I did not go. In the morning, one of my staff, a Scottish lady, Belinda, I will never forget her name. He said, hey, Lekki, were you at ABA yesterday? Because I wasn't there, I couldn't answer. You know what she told me? He said, wow, you're a stupid man. Because she knew from my body language that I wasn't there. I said, Banjo, that's what they call my second son. His name is Adetoye HB, Adebanjo, Adedipe. So they prefer to call the Banjo, because Banjo is easy. Say Banjo was fantastic. After he sang and played the piano, the entire hall rose up in standing ovation for him. You stupid man not to have been there. But you know, I remember the words very clearly. He said, if I was your wife, I would throw your things out. And you know what? I felt ashamed. And that was one of the very few times I never attended their school program. After that, I made a conscious decision. Except I am sick and they tie my leg up in the hospital, I will be at any function that my children have in school. And I kept to that. My first son went to read petroleum engineering at LSU. My friend, who also read petroleum engineering like myself, was his professor. At the second year, I saw that his grades dropped from A to B- in some of the courses. Then I saw that he was doing some other courses, like political science and all of that. And he was scoring A there. Because I was not a particularly exposed person, let me put it that way. I said, okay, maybe he's doing the political science as electives. By the end of the second semester, which is the spring semester of his second year, I found out that he didn't even do any petroleum engineering course at all. Thank you. He switched. And I got mentor. And I jumped into the plane and I went to Baton Rouge in the US. My friend, who is his professor, because we all grew up together, he knows my temperament. So immediately he saw my email that I'm on the plane. He understood what was playing in his friends. So you know what he did? He didn't allow my son to come and carry me at the airport. He came to carry me. And he said, Lekki, listen to this, and listen very carefully. Tuesday and I were spoken. It's like you, but you are pretending that it's not like you. You knew when we were in secondary school, you did history, literature, economics, and Latin. As well as you did mathematics, physics, chemistry, and biology. And you were the troublesome boy in our class who made our school to change the issue of 4P and 4H. Because in those days, in Form 4, it's either you go to Form 4 physics or you go to Form 4 history. And when the principal said, I said, no, you're not my father. My father is dead, but I've been trained. He wanted me to be a lawyer, but I'll be an engineer. And I will do both history and physics. And there's no law of Western Nigeria that says I can't do that. And if you make life difficult for me, I will write to Olunloyo. Olunloyo was the commissioner for education then. And because, so the man let me be. I was in 4P, but I still did this, which was exactly the same thing as my son. But I was blindsided about that. But he took my friend to help me. So he said, you got to be calm with him. He's made his choice. You can't force him, all of that. So we had to discuss. You know what he told me? He said that you started your petroleum engineering career in the field. I want to start my petroleum engineering career in the office. He said, you rose to be a manager. I want to be a manager from day one. You know, there are two different mindsets. He finished, and he said, look, Dad, you only pay one year school fees. Because instead of 4 years, I'll do 5 years, but I'll get 2 degrees. I didn't know that. Why? Because I studied at the University of Ibadan. If you came in for petroleum engineering, you just came in for petroleum engineering, and you do it. But in the US, you can do combined. I didn't know. I was a bushman from Akure. And he got a combined honors degree in petroleum engineering and in political science. And he went to do a master's degree in political science. The work he got in an engineering firm called Cummins Power Generation in Minneapolis. You know what attracted the recruiter, the manager recruiting, to recruit him? He said, I have never seen this kind of combination before. And that opportunity, I could have used my stupidity to scatter. My second son is an electrical engineer, but he makes more money from music than he makes from electrical engineering. I used to be the MC in the 70s and early 80s when my friends wedded, or when my relations wedded. We did it for free. He does MC work now in the US, and you have to pay his flight ticket to where you are doing the wedding. You have to put him in a hotel, and you have to give him $1,000. The work he is doing with Ethan as senior principal electrical engineer, he doesn't get $1,000 a day. Extraordinary fathers are B-men fathers. Thank you very much. Oh, I don't know if they record this. My little girl, she's a Nigerian to the core. She wants to be a politician like her grandfather. She's currently doing some work with Bill Gates Foundation in Nigeria. NURI, they call them National something Reproductive Health Initiative. That's where she is, but she has her eyes to become a legislator in Ondo State. Thank you very much.